Nothing but the fun. It's your man Tony Don T with another big, good movie review. We're going to talk about one of my all-time favorite films that was released June 3rd of 1989. It's called Honey, I Shrunk. The Kid starring Rick Moranis as Wayne Selinsky. This was a real good film, especially for all you 80s babies, you know, that's in your, like us, like we're in our mid 30s to late 30s now. We know how this movie had a cultural impact on us, especially on us youngsters. And I believe a lot of like teens, I believe at the time, or young adults really liked this film. Because the 20s looked kind of older than they do now. For some odd reason, I don't know. A lot of people look older back then than they do now. But, yeah, June 23rd, 1989, I seen this movie. Actually, I seen this as a field trip I think I was about in the first grade or I was either in the first grade or daycare, one of the two. Because back then, teachers was allowed to take their classroom on field trips, like out. I don't know if they still do that these days, but I think this with either my first grade teacher or my preschool daycare teacher. It was one of the two, but I remember well, we all and a couple kids, we went to the theater and we seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and before the movie started, I believe there was a Roger Rabbit skit that played before it, of what I remember. I think you can buy this on the VHS. It was called Tummy Trouble. And yeah, Roger Rabbit back in the 80s was a big thing for us 80s kids, you know, so that was just like a bonus treat. But the movie was pretty much a family comedy adventure, you know, pretty much about a scientist who invented a machine that he couldn't get to work, but it worked on his kids and the neighbor's kids. It shrunk them. He was trying to shrink an apple in the beginning of the video of the movie, but it blew up and turned into applesauce, which was a big thing too, because 80s kids loved applesauce. You know, we loved simple shit like that back then. Kids nowadays, I don't know what the hell they like, but this was one of my favorite movies, and pretty much all the 80s babies love this movie. Like I said, it was about a scientist, Wayne Selinsky, who was trying to get his machine to work, and it ended up shrinking his kids. And now, once he realized it, he realized he threw the kids away in the trash, and he was searching for them in the backyard. And the kids, from their perspective, you know, the backyard was like a hell of a jungle because they were so small. So they had to go through a lot of stuff. Like they had to go through the sprinklers, they had to go through bees, they had to go through ants and scorpions and all types of shit, you know, lawnmowers. So they had to get there and survive to get back to the house so their dad can fix them. But it was a real good film. You know, it gave a lot of kids wonderment of an imagination, especially if you was young like me, seeing this for the first time in the theaters. Like I said, it was just a wow moment, you know. And like I said, this was a field trip, you know, which, you know, I don't even know if they do those anymore. Comment below if they do, I don't know. But there's a lot of scenes that stuck out, but pretty much short, you know, the kids get back to the house and there's almost an awe moment because one of the kids fell into their dad's cereal, and you know, the dad was just finna eat him until the dog bit him on the leg, and the dad realized, like, oh shit, this is my son, you know. But there's a lot of scenes that I remember. I actually watched this a couple days ago to see if I can get that emotional core. And for some, these movies, they still hold up. You know, these movies are almost 30 years old and they still hold up. I still got the same goosebumps that I did when I was a kid, you know. And one thing about life is, I'm gonna just put this for the side note, you'll never forget where you first seen a movie. You know, that's the beauty of it, because, you know, it's the same movie, you know, but it's just, you know, you're just much older. Now, I do have some issues with this movie, you know, because, you know, I'm a good critic of movies. For example, like when the Thompsons, when they was going on a fishing trip, like they was taking golf clubs and you know, the skis and all that shit for a summer fishing trip, which I really didn't understand. They was taking a lot of weird stuff if you really pay attention to it. But it was overall a good movie. Some of my favorite scenes, the apple scene when it first comes on, you know, it set the movie off on a path that, you know, then nobody knew where it was going to go. But it blew up, you know, and it made Applesauce, which back then, like I said, that was 80s kids' favorite. Applesauce was like candy to us, you know, at least to me, and the people that I know. The backyard scene when they first get into the backyard, and, you know, Russ Thompson, he slides down the grass with the leaf, look like a slide. That was cool. What else? Oh, there was the cigarette scene when the dad at night, he throws the cigarette out in the grass in the Zelensky's yard, right into the kids, and you see the how small the kids are to the cigarette, and they use it for a torch. That was a good scene. The Lego scene, of course, that scene, because again, 80s kids who are probably like pretty much in their mid 30s to late 30s now. You know, I don't even think they're 40 yet, but us 80 babies, we getting up there. But yeah, Legos back in the 80s was a big deal, you know. Probably one of my favorite toys. I remember my mom used to buy, for one Christmas, I had like a big bucket of Legos, and we would just like build stuff, you know, all types of stuff. They're more advanced now. I think they got like adult Legos, but Legos and Applesauce, you know, that was big in the 80s. What else? There was the bee scene where, you know, Nick get into the pollen or whatever, and the bee come and get him up, and then Russ tries to he saves him, and they flying around, and you see the dads. I like that. I don't know how they shot that. I'm gonna have to look that up, how they shot that, but that was a good scene on how they shot that. I think they used it like a projector though, but that was good. That was a good scene, and it was just an adventure, you know. Of course, the Andy or whatever, you know, I remember that scene. Him fighting the crab or whatever. Well, back then I thought it was a crab. See, and that's the thing about being a kid. It looked like a crab from my perspective, but as I got older, it was a scorpion. So yeah, when the ant fights the scorpion, and to this day, when you look at it, you know, he didn't stand a chance against that scorpion. You know, it was a wrap. But, you know, he showed heart. You know, he got up, you know, and tried to save up, you know, his friend or whatever. Russ Jr., I think his name is. But what else scene? The cookie scene. That was probably like my favorite scene, because back then, you know, those little Debbie cakes, those little oatmeal cookies, those was real big for 80s kids. Anything like Twinkies or pies. They even had like these zebra stripe cakes, you know, that they had. But those was real big. That was one of my favorite scenes, you know, because it just puts you into that wonderment. Like, man, I wonder if I was small, would I be eating a cookie like that? So, you know, that was a good scene. And of course, the last scene, not least, was the Cheerios scene. Now, I remember when I was younger, I seen the trailer. I was watching the trailer actually before we went on a field trip to go to the movies to see it. And I remember that line when he says, "Dad, don't eat me, Mom." You know, that was a good scene. Because Cheerios was big in the 80s. Like I said, I don't know what kids eat these days. Like a lot of nostalgia from that movie, you know. But it was a good movie, a good Disney film, adventure. And as I got older, you can tell it deals with more adult stuff like divorce and peer pressure. There's a bigger meaning to that movie once you start breaking it down. Because like the peer pressure comes from Russell and the Thompsons from him, you know, quitting the football team or whatever, and his dad bitching about it. And then it deals with like divorce and spouse divorce. Because I guess back then in white America, divorce rates was really high. They was going up. So, and that's what's with the Zelensky's, with the divorce scene or whatever. So that movie has a really deep meaning, but from a kid's perspective, we don't really pay attention to that, you know. But it was a good message. It was a good movie. It gets an A+, one of my top 10 Disney films. I think I only have 10 top Disney films. Yeah, that'd be the top. You know, that would be in the top 10. You know, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, 1989. If you guys haven't seen that, go see that movie, especially for all you youngsters. I like watching those reactions of the youngsters watching those old movies. So go check it out. You know, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, 1989. Like, share, and subscribe. Got more videos on the way. Let's be out.